Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GBYWN Australian podcast. I'm your host, Aston Crude, here for episode number 93. And we're doing the roundtable discussion of Wrestleution 5 from April 22nd, 2017. It's been a year and a half since the final show. And we're back here reconvening with Killawatt Kaos,
Yo.
Daniel Johnston.
I'm mostly made of cigarettes.
And Jack Wallace.
Hey, yeah, I'm Monkey.
What?
Anyway,
This thing's already off the rails,
the next match on the show, we just finished with J Flame Clint Marshall. Next match on the show is Daniel Johnston being accompanied to the ring by Vincent Graves and final ICWS Heavyweight Champion Knuckles to take on the one and only Champagne Rex Regan.
The champagne supernova in the sky.
Now, little backstory on this. Because of DJ's longevity in backyard wrestling and all that shit, I said to him, DJ, who do you want to be your final opponent? And I'll make sure it happens. And he picked Rex Regan. So I knew, okay, we'll fire up a year-long feud to culminate Wrestleution 5 for DJ to have his last storyline be a fucking cracker. So Daniel Johnston, Rex Regan was born based on the fact that DJ wanted his final opponent to be Rex. DJ, the first question I want to ask you before we get to the match is, what was Rex's reaction finding out that you wanted him as your final opponent?
I think that Rex was had mixed feelings about it. You know,
Right.
I know that Rex, Chris is one of my best friends, and we're pretty close. And I know that he was happy that he was going to get to wrestle me again because we've always had a great chemistry in the ring. But I also know that I think that there was a part of him that wished that he was involved with the other WZWA originals as well. Which that certainly, I can't hold that against him. But I know for me, it was just, I couldn't have asked for a better opponent. So I definitely felt like the pressure, I had to make Rex feel like, this was worthy of being his last match.
Yeah. I kind of felt a bit concerned about it, considering what the initial plan was, which was the final match at the final show being the four originals in a four-way for the heavyweight title, with Rex walking in as champion. Yeah. So knowing that was going to no longer happen, and I was concerned that Chris might be a bit upset at the fact that wasn't happening anymore, and that he'd just be losing a match to the one and only Daniel Johnston.
It's more fitting, in my opinion.
Oh,
but
really?
Let me say it. Let me just let me wait. Just wait.
All right. So that was the backing story of the match. Obviously, Regan was slated for bigger things, but he's put into this year-long feud with DJ, which was, in my opinion, a very good feud, and culminated in a great way at the final show, where Daniel Johnston ended up picking up the win with the skull-crushing finale. I think I'd like to start this one off with Jack Wallace.
All right. So I'm just going to continue on what I was about to say before. So I feel like it was way more fitting that DJ versus Regan took place. So then when I think about it, if that four-way took place, we would have never got...
Antilicus and Dan.
We would never got Antilicus and Dan, so Dan would have ended up having to verse Chaos or something with me. We would never got fucking Chaos versus Phoenix, which means we probably would have never got that swanton off the roof, but we'll get to that later. And we would have been a domino effect.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have got me versus Monet.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have got DJ versus Regan. Who would have DJ versed? I couldn't imagine.
Actually, I think Regan was going to do double duty.
But
the DJ wasn't happy with that idea.
I didn't want that because I was like,
I wouldn't want
this
that
is supposed
either.
to be the final show.
How bad does it look on a card if someone's just doing double duty?
Yeah.
Like that. I feel like the only time it's been really necessary is for Chaos versus Phoenix, because Chaos's reputation as a hardcore wrestler kind of redeems the double duty. And everyone knows that I've never been a fan of people doing double duty or triple duty on a card.
Right.
Especially not if it's you doing it.
No, I hate it, man. I'll do it if it's I'll wrestle twice in a day if it's for example, we're doing a show and then we do backyard TV after or before it. I'll wrestle twice in a day, no dramas. But I won't wrestle twice on a card. I don't like wrestlers doing double duty, but this is an opinion for a different conversation. Regards into the match, it was everything I expected it to be. I felt it was it was one of those cards you'd see at like a wrestle. It was not one of those cards, one of those matches you'd see at a WrestleMania that would get on the middle of a card and usually involve Chris Jericho or Chris Benoit or Kurt Angle. You know those matches that go for like half an hour, they drag on, and they're the fucking like one of those
technical masterpieces.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was on the show. Like I felt like it was the technical masterpiece of the show. Like it was one of the only matches on the card that actually displayed like technical wrestling, bar Crude and Mykonos and Flame and Marshall. Everything else was more brawls and high spots and stuff like that. Whereas this one actually just showcased a fair bit of technical wrestling, which was it was again, like I said earlier, it's refreshing to see. It breaks the card up a bit,
right, and
breaks up the style of wrestling. Yeah, it was a good match. It was everything I expected it to be, and with DJ winning, I agreed with that result being booked as the one to go through in the end.
I just felt like DJ put over enough people over the years that it was time for him to get a win and walk out with his head held high.
And I feel like Regan's got a special story to his character because he's always got close to obtaining something or beating someone in a major feud, but he's always fell short. And he didn't get that special ending in the end either. Mm-hmm. He still fell short, and I feel like that's a special story that Chris can take away when it comes to Rex Regan. It's a unique story. Not many people would want that, but it's
to not have a happy ending for the character to walk out.
But it makes sense though because his character was never a happy person.
Chaos thoughts.
My thoughts on the match was, and this is all in honesty, it was a great match. It was really good, and to see DJ and Chris Rex Regan have another match is always a pleasure. As per the last show, I was expecting a lot more, to be honest. I thought it would be a lot more technical, and that would actually be able to see more of a showcase. That being said, it wasn't a crap match. It was a good match. It was a great match. But if we turn the tables back to ICWS, that Aussie Anarchy, that I felt like maybe I was only expecting too much because I expected Lightning to strike for like a third fucking time. But you know what, man? You were sick. You didn't even know if you could actually come out and do the fucking match. You pulled it off, man. You fucking brought it. So did Chris. And like we were talking about before, the culmination of Chris's career, Chris has always felt short. Chris did an excellent fucking job. And he brought it as well. And you know, all in all, like, that is not a fucking downfall in the event at all. That was another, like, good flowing, and it kept the streak going for a great fucking event. And I actually loved it, and always love seeing you. I always love seeing Chris, and especially with his new champagne Rex Regan gimmick, where I can honestly say, because I knew where he's coming from, was doing the whole Ric Flair thing, coming out like that he is wrestling royalty, that he is a great part in WZWA. And I thought it was a great fucking match. And yeah.
DJ?
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with Chaos a little bit. Not because I'm trying to like put down my own performance, but the fact that I was sick, is definitely a regret for me. I really wanted it to be more akin to the first match that we had.
Well, I mean, you chose to be sick, mate, so I mean...
Think of it like Michael Jordan's flu game.
I would have wanted probably to, like, sort of push it a little bit further. I think that Chris probably would have wanted to push it a little bit further as well. I liken it to, like, the WZWA equivalent of, like, the Shawn Michaels Stone Cold match at WrestleMania 14, where, like, it's still this great match and it's still this big match, but... the fact that one of us wasn't able to be at 100%, like, it affected, I think that it would be naive of me to say that it was like a 100% performance for me because I just wasn't feeling 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know from talking to people that at the time that match took place, a lot of people in the arena were telling me that it was the best match on the card up to that point. Obviously, like later on in the show, it would be overtaken naturally by all the, the big glamorous matches that were going to follow it. But the fact, I do think that we delivered as far as, I felt like we probably had the best, technical match on the show, as far as a match that had no other outside interference, no other bearing, no other variables influencing
No pomp and circumstance.
Yeah. As far as just a match, I'm really happy. I'm really happy with it. I'm very happy with the fact that all three of our major matches were different from each other. Like, this one was different from the previous one, and that one was different from the ICWS one. Chris was very happy with it. He said that he was pleased with how the match turned out. Jared Slate said that he really enjoyed our match. He liked the fact that we started it out slowly and built it up. I remember thinking, I wish just for Chris's sake that we could have gone a little bit harder, because, I wanted to really give Chris that fucking 5-star match, but I feel like instead of being a 5-star match, it was more of a 4-star match. However, I am quite happy with how it went. I think that, it did take a lot out of me to step up and perform that level of match on that day. Any other show, if I'd been feeling the same way, I might not have wrestled at all. And I do think that it turned out really well, especially when Chris and I we didn't plan a lot. We didn't go out of our way to plan all these big elaborate spots. We just sort of went in there and had a match, as we've always done, because we enjoy wrestling each other. We're good friends, and I think that we've always had that chemistry, and that's just kind of what we relied on to get us through the match. There are definitely things that I would change about it. I wish that I'd been able to perform better in terms of the actual chain wrestling part at the beginning. I wish that because I had the flu and stuff like that, I was just gassed really early, and so definitely on my part, there's some, I do feel as though the match could have been better, but I think that Chris, for his part, did a really good job. And for me, the only thing that matters is did the other people watching enjoy it? And everyone said to me that they thought it was a really good match, one of the better ones on the show. Out of 15 matches, if I was in the top 5 matches, I consider that to be a good accomplishment.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I was quite happy with it. It told a good story, in my opinion, with, obviously Rex was a thorn in your side as the story went on before we got to the final show. But I really liked the part of the match where Rex is walking off and he's at the entranceway and everyone's shouting at him, "Don't fucking bail on the match, don't be a pussy." The Rex Regan character is showing right there that he just knows at this stage right now, on the biggest stage of all, in the final match, he can't beat Daniel Johnston. But he has that moment where he goes, fuck, I've got to do the right thing here, and if I'm going to lose, I better fucking go and lose right.
And that's Rex Regan.
And he charged back to the ring. Few clotheslines, fucking got wiped out with a skull-crushing finale, took his loss, the character took his loss, knowing, didn't matter what he tried, but he knew that it was going to end up that way anyway, and in a way that kind of almost, for me, turns Rex a little bit babyface, doing the right thing, despite the fact that he's, he's a heel, and that's the situation that he was in, but I thought it was a pretty nice little story told in those final, 45 seconds to a minute or whatever. But very good. And, a good match to have in the middle of the show, I think. We'd seen some pretty hectic stuff already, but this was still slowly building to what would come next. So good stuff, boys. And again, sorry, Chris, that you couldn't win the championship or climb to the spot that you always wanted to get to. I know that if I continued WZWA, you probably would have been the one to beat Ryan for the championship.
And what a match that would have been.
That would have been the most fitting person to beat him for.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100.
And then he probably would have lost it to Monet.
And then I'll beat Monet for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah, you wouldn't.
There we go.
You wouldn't have. Loser.
Right, next
No one's
match.
allowed to beat Monet except me.
Next match is one of the more interesting matches on the card. It is for the Backyard Championship. It has Showtime Clyde, the Backyard Champion, taking on Party Boy Still Kemsley
My
with
personal favourite.
his
This is
father, John
my match of the night.
Kemsley, you know, the man from Platinum Realty, at ringside, as well as his trainer, Just Mike from XCW. To try and say this in a quick amount of time, that this match was initially supposed to be Phaser versus Steel for the Backyard Championship. Phaser was supposed to be a long reigning Backyard Champion, where his stipulation would be that you had to beat him for a 5 count, or he had to beat you for a 5 count, not a 3 count. So, because he's so dominant, he's killing everyone with a 5 count, but no one can even get a 3 count on him. But then maybe at one point when he wrestled Steel on the way there, Steel did get a 3 count, but Phaser kicks out at 4.
That's so
But
far.
it doesn't matter. It's the stipulation. You've got to get to 5.
It's so
It's ridiculous, but the idea obviously didn't happen once Phaser was taken away as he was tripping around the US, and obviously he moved to Melbourne. So with Clyde being there, he was the one to take the Backyard Championship from Kyle, and I knew at that point it was going to be in him and Steel, which would kind of play off the previous shit going on with the Broken Highway Mafia, but I felt like that shit wasn't really covered throughout the feud. Now, this storyline with Clyde and Brandon Cage, this whole thing was supposed to be about the fact that the guy's schizo, and he can't find success as Brandon Cage, so his brain has created Clyde. And Clyde is trying to take over Brandon Cage. Brandon Cage doesn't want Clyde to take over because Clyde's a fucking freak. But when he is Clyde, he sees success and he wins and he becomes champion. So it's supposed to be about this story of this inner struggle of him with this mental illness, trying to combat this fucking other character that's inside of his head, kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde, but a Brandon and Clyde.
Rhymes.
And it was working for me at the beginning, but then I kind of felt like near the end, Brandon forgot about that story, and he just stayed with being Clyde. And what I really wanted was, after the match was over, to have some sort of moment where Clyde disappeared and he became Brandon Cage again. Something like that, but we never really got that loose end tied off. And obviously with Steel, he'd never won a singles title before, and I thought, what a fitting way for the Backyard Championship, which was one of the most important championships that the WZWA ever had. What a fitting way for someone so beloved that had improved to such a great level as a singles wrestler. What a great way for that belt to go out than to be onto Steel. Obviously we added a lot of ridiculousness to the storyline with the inclusion of his dad John, who we all fucking love, and John having to find the best trainer that money can buy, which is Just Mike, who, as we know, isn't exactly a athletically gifted human being, so for him to be the trainer is ridiculous in its own way. But I found that the video that we made where Mike trained Steel was fucking hilarious, and just the perfect way for this storyline to be played off, to make it more a little bit about comedy. So we get to the match now, and I'll start with you, DJ. Clyde versus Steel fucking Kemsley for the Backyard Championship.
Well, I mean, I said as we were discussing my match that people were saying that it was the best match up to that point. I mean, it was literally a case of like, our match went on and people were telling me that was the best match so far on the show, and I'm feeling really good at it. And then this match happened and it just blew it out of the water. And I have absolutely no problem with that, because this was probably, my personal favourite as well, just in terms of entertainment value. We're talking about a match here that was wrestling personified. All the elements lined up perfectly. The booking, the creative, the people involved. The appearance by John Kemsley, the fact that Steel had the gear made just to come out for the match, the fact that we played on the John's gimmick of being this kind of rich, like sort of suave businessman, and him trying to pay off the fucking opponent. But then when he got involved in the match and everyone went nuts, I mean, for my money, this was the epitomization of why we all do backyard wrestling. It was one of those moments where everything just aligns perfectly and it just works out amazingly.
Someone's dad cops a fucking F5. I mean, come on. It's perfect. Jack, your thoughts on this fucking insanity of a match?
This one, like, fuck, man. Clyde vs. Steel, Kamsley Wrestleution 5 to me is the Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage WrestleMania 3 on the card. I'm putting it all in there, man. That's that match on this card.
Have you ever actually seen that match?
Of course I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Well, if you're a wrestling fan and you haven't seen that match, just
fuck off.
Just either fuck off or go watch it.
Do you hear how aggressive he said fuck off? He's like, either fuck off, like...
Or go watch it.
Sorry,
Or go watch it.
But, no, man, I remember I was the cameraman for this match, man. It was the only match from the show I actually had to do camera duty for, and it was a challenge trying to hold my shit together when I was watching John Kemsley get F5 to fucking hell. The match as a whole was just fucking amazing. Like I never thought in a million years after seeing what he was like coming in 2013 to seeing the performance he had 4 years later at Wrestleution 5. Like it's unfucking real. And then that brings me to the next point on why I wonder on what WZWA would be like if we did keep going for another year or two. If we decided maybe at Wrestleution fucking 8 in 2020. We'll close our doors in 2020. How good's like the likes of Steel and
who would be on top at that point?
Exactly, he would be the champion. You know, Rex would have eventually got his championship. The list would go on. Clyde probably would have even got his championship. Man, everyone would have got their chance. And but I would be more excited and more interested in how good they were because of that show. At the last show, man, I've never seen Brandon or Steel in a form like that.
They're on fire.
Show. Like it was just unreal, and it was just even if you hate backyard wrestling, you have to respect a match like that.
Exactly, Chaos.
Yep.
A little preoccupied, but
I'm fine, man.
Clyde versus Steel. Your thoughts?
Again, this was another one of those matches where we've seen before, but it hasn't been any less of what they could bring. What I loved as well is that we had the addition of Just Mike and John Kemsley. Now I was there when I was filming the training segment that we did. With
That's
Just
right.
Mike.
Yeah.
So I was filming it, and man, I fucking loved it. I knew this was going to be like a really nice, slightly unique match. And man, you know what? Fucking, they did what they wanted to go out and do, and you know we had a bit of comedy in the match. Just Mike, the bribing thing was fucking excellent because we know fucking John Kemsley is, you know, as fucking stacked with cash as he is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, Brandon brought his all and fucking did a great job, man. Fucking Steel, man, he has not disappointed. It's another thing where we've gone with like Aries and Ace, where you know what, man, just keeps improving and improving and improving, and he gets his groove, and whoever he's wrestling, man, fucking him. He was in the Fatal 4-Way when it was me, Phoenix, and Rex Regan.
Yeah.
For the fucking hardcore title, dude. He was doing so well there. Like, this is him just keep escalating and escalating and escalating and doing a pretty fucking good match. A fucking excellent match. And you know what? At the end, to have the bit with John getting involved, another thing where we kept our groove going. We had the entertainment side of things, and fuck, man. You know what? I don't think there's anything else I could add to make it any better. They literally went out there 100% and gave it their all, and I was fucking impressed with them, and it was a great conclusion to what was happening, especially with the Broken Highway Mafia and involving more of John. So yeah, it was fucking great, man.
I think it was the sign that the show was now kicking into the next gear. And I don't remember who this quote is from, but someone said the only two people that would have ever thought or suggested the idea that someone's dad cops an F5 during a match would be when Brandon and Steele are coming up with ideas for their match. There is no one else that would have even fathomed that that was an idea to put in place, and John didn't know what the fucking F5 was, and I can't believe that it fucking happened. But when it happened, everyone went mental because we never thought ever that John would get that involved. We thought he'd be happy to come to ringside and do some of the promos that they did when they were in John's office and all that shit.
We thought that was enough as it is.
We thought it was enough. We thought that was phenomenal enough. But when we, I was talking to someone watching the match and really enjoying it, but I kind of, for a second, wasn't paying attention so much. And then I looked up and all of a sudden I see John on Brandon's shoulders for the F5, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And the pop for the F5 was fucking massive. Probably pop of the show, to
Probably
be
the
honest.
spot of the show.
Yeah, and great conclusion to the end of the match. Steele wins the Backyard Championship. They both, say their farewells to WZWA, and we move forward. But
What a match.
fantastic match,
Great
and
match.
It goes down as one of the best single matches of all time in WZWA, man.
Definitely.
It's in the top 10.
definitely.
Easy.
Because the actual match itself was also a phenomenal match.
Mm.
Everything was executed.
That slap that Brandon gave Steele was just fucking intense, man. Like, they really brought it. Let's get to the next one. It's World Hardcore Championship. Supposed to be Phoenix versus Three Dog, but Three Dog has not shown up. So Chaos is going to be thrown into the match as Phoenix's opponent, as the only opponent that made any sense at that point. And I guess the backstory of that is, as I said, Three Dog wasn't showing up. So Chaos was kind of like, knew that he was the backup plan all day. And kept on coming up to me, have you heard from Three Dog? Phoenix kept coming up to me, have you heard from nope, I haven't. You guys better just go ahead and, decide now that this is probably what's going to be happening. So go plan what you need to plan and do what you got to do. And I believe Phoenix came up to me at one stage and said, just for a bit of a swerve, do you think it would be good for me to drop the title to Chaos? And I was like, if that's what you guys want to do, you guys decide. You guys are you guys are at this point now with the World Hardcore title. It's out of my hands. You guys decide what you want to do. So, Chaos, he's already wrestled Alex. He's already become tag champion that day. Thought his career was over. Nope. He does it now. Now he realises he's got one more match in him. So, Chaos, I want to know what your thoughts are on the moment you realised, okay, I'm not retired just yet.
It's just like it's the match, and it's against who?
Yeah. No. Well, when it was getting closer and closer to Three Dog not making any contact or not arriving, I still had hope that he would arrive, because I did want to see Three Dog versus Phoenix again, because I knew it was going to be a fucking epic match. But the closer it came to the match, I was getting more nervous and basically losing hope that I was going to be able to chill out and watch a fucking decent, hardcore fucking title match. So, with nerves aside, I was also getting ready. I was basically hyping myself up, pacing back and forth, music in, talking to Phoenix, talking about what's going to happen in the match, what plans he had with Three Dog, and of course what to do with the title. The match came on. I would have liked better if it was basically him saying Three Dog's not here. There's no one. I don't think there's anyone here that's going to wrestle me. So boo-hoo for me. I guess I'll just stay the World Hardcore Champion, and then I kind of make a surprise, and that's just a little tidbit, really. That's just me nitpicking and being very critical. That would have been fucking awesome. But he challenged me, which was, that would be the second best thing, to actually be like, well, Three Dog ain't here. You know, I want chaos then. I think that's who it should be. So that was fucking awesome, man. Of course, as you see, contrary to the last two matches, I actually put my war paint on. That's how fucking ready I was. I was like, I'm going to put some effort in, get the war paint on, and then came to the fucking match, and as you can see, it was a fucking, not a shit fest, as in, I guess everything was crap, because we both did what we wanted to do in that, but man, we fucked each other trying to do a really good match. As you, I even the moves I hit on Phoenix, I think I hurt myself fucking more. There's one bit with the sink upside down, and I tombstoned him on it, but the edge of it where there was a drain went straight up my fucking anus, and like smashed my tailbone. I literally thought, like, I've fractured my tailbone before, and I thought that I could be fucked. I could be fucked after this, and I just kept going and tried to give me all.
And then you hit that fucking
the cannonball.
The cannonball into that.
I still feel it, man. I still feel it. Sometimes I just wake up wrong, and it's that same pain.
Shit.
Yeah. So what also happened there was I didn't refracture the ribs, but I bruised my ribs. That whole fucking side is pretty fucked. From a previous match that I had with you. And that was when I fractured my ribs falling off a Jeep and then getting refractured in our match.
Right.
ICWS. So, like, that's always been a tender spot. But, yeah, like I said, I just kept kicking through. And basically, it was about midway through the match where I was like, look, man, drop the title to me. I've got, like, a little something I want to do. And that's what he wanted to do from the get-go, really. He wanted to drop the title because he thought it made sense.
Right.
And for the most part, I actually was against it. But, of course, I didn't make my my speech was everything I wanted in WZWA, but I wanted to do a little thing for Phoenix. So eventually, after this fucking hardcore match where we went toe-to-toe and it was a fucking honour to be with him, we ended up doing the spot, which kind of got fucked up, and I think I should just, I don't know if I've elaborated before, but of course I think he's about to jump, because he actually feigns jumping. I'm quite sure he was about to jump and then just kind of backed off for a bit, and I was supposed to roll off. So I roll off and he's still up there, and of course everyone's like, oh, what the fuck's going to happen? Alright, this is fucking shit, yada yada yada. So I did what would be the chaos thing to do, would be, alright, I'm crazy, I'll take it, and I'll still be good. I'll take everything you fucking got. You're gonna jump at me? Do it. I'll take it. Yep, no worries. Fucking he jumps. I do the unpredictable thing, which is I'm not gonna be crazy. I'm actually gonna be fucking smart, which is a throwback to me being fucking non-hardcore, anti-hardcore, being like, no, I'm too fucking smart. Gore into that fucking. I put all my might in that fucking Gore. Hit him. I'm 3 times.
Into the iconic street sign that was always there for years.
Always, man, and I always try to use it for everything. And then, of course, the match happens, and I couldn't have been more excited, really, to win the match. And, of course, that little part of me, the egotistical side, yeah, another fucking hardcore champion, knowing deep in my mind that what I really wanted to do at the end of that match was pass it off to Phoenix. And tell him that no matter what happens, man, you are the hardcore guy. You took over. We all stepped it up a level. Me, Ice, 3Dog, Jacob, Low. We all fucking, went over each other. But man, no one could ever get one above you for being the crazy, hardcore, ultra-violent guy that he is. And,
how do you respond to him claiming months down the line, when I was saying that you were the last world hardcore champion, his claim of, well, no, Chaos gave me the title back, so that means I became the champion again? And I was like, well, that's not really how it works. Like, Knuckles gave you back the ICWS championship as a token of respect.
Of course, yeah.
But that didn't make you the last ICWS champion. It just meant that you were given the physical belt back again.
Exactly.
And it's not a full title reign again when you handed it was the same thing, right?
Exactly.
But he was quite passionate and argumentative with me about it for a few hours one evening, and I was like, bro, the show's done. It's over with. If you think you're the last World Hardcore Champion, okay, but in my books, Chaos was. So what was your thoughts on that whole thing?
Well, I do remember that. I remember the months afterwards and the novels that he was writing on Facebook, which I will not lie, some of it came off offensive, some of it came off very hostile. I basically I drew inspiration from when Knuckles gave me the ICWS championship.
Yeah.
That I felt humbled by that. I felt very taken back from it, and I fucking loved it. I thought it was actually awesome. And I thought, if I could do the same for someone else, why not do
Right.
it? He, through the whole match, wanted to drop the title to me anyway.
Right.
He wanted me to become... If you're going to drop the title to me, that means I'm going to be the last fucking hardcore champion anyway. But what I did was, I guess, I wasn't trying to do it at the time, but at the end of it, I took the title, the actual title of last World Hardcore Champion, but he took the belt. He took the
actual
trophy.
title, yeah.
And that's this isn't something that, like, basically as well was just passed along. I somehow got it because the first hardcore title was different.
Yeah.
This one I built myself. I built materials from Chris's Opa, his mum's dad's shed, and it has like monumental meaning to me as well.
Right.
The passion I put into that belt, I wanted to pass that on to someone as with the passion of hardcore wrestling, of backyard wrestling in general, and family, and that was just my little memento, and also to tell him that you are the guy. This is me literally conceding and saying you are the guy.
Yeah.
So for everything, I'll take the title. I feel that I've done my fair share to make him feel like, he still came out on top.
Right on, bro. Sad thing about that title is when he got evicted at one stage, whoever was evicting him threw some of his stuff out and he lost the title.
I've been through that shit, man, so I don't blame him for it. I've been through that.
Yeah.
And of course, if anything, I threw the original ICWS title in the trash.
That was a silly mistake.
So DJ, remember, every time I tell you to do something, you do it at that time.
Oh man, I think I left the ICWS title and been, we'll get it tomorrow morning, bro. 20 metres away from it, but no, we'll do it tomorrow morning, bro. Then that's it. It's gone forever. That's it.
DJ's not one of those guys that remembers when it's been.
We didn't even get to have it at the last show.
That's right. We'll remake it one day. All right, that was a long one. That was a long answer there.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but it's not this.
So if you guys, in a nutshell, could just give your thoughts, as Chaos's thoughts was quite extensive there. So,
oh man,
in a nutshell,
dude,
if you
like,
can.
Nutshell, fucking loved it. One of my favourite matches on the show, and I loved basically every match on the show. So it's like when I say that it was one of my favourites, I mean it. And I thought that, even though Chaos is my best mate, I wasn't that happy to see him get hurt. At the same time, I was like, man, fuck, what a phenomenal match. And
That's what he does best, bro.
Yeah, that legacy, that hardcore wrestling that he popularized in WA Yarding, man, this match was the pinnacle of that, and it couldn't have gone any better.
If I could have, I would have set myself on fire again.
Right on, Jack.
Fuck again, everything I expected. Phoenix came to me before the match. Can I jump off the roof of your fucking extension? You've signed a waiver, go for it. Fucking.
Is that what you actually said to him?
Yeah, I said it to him, man. I was just like, man, I'm not responsible for whatever fucking happens to you. And he goes, yeah, man, don't worry. Done this before. Yep.
Just
Am I really surprised? Does a swanton for the extension, gets up like 2 seconds later, like nothing happened. I reckon that con could jump off a skyscraper, hit the floor, and get up like 5 seconds later, and we'll go buy a coffee. It'd be sweet.
Right on. Yeah, obviously I was pretty chuffed with the match, and I think it was probably better than what Three Dog versus Phoenix would have been, considering how much Three Dog had been around at that point. But I was happy for Kaos to be able to walk out for being a 3-time World Hardcore Champion. He was the first one from Australia to win the championship, and I felt like once again everything came full circle with that, and it was my thought at that point Kaos was the MVP of Wrestleution 5.
Absolutely.
Tag team champion.
Right.
A great match with Alex, a great moment with Viper, and then a great match with Phoenix, and a second title victory within the same fucking show. MVP of the show. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah.
He wrestled twice, well technically once, but he wrestled a third match, and he still put in the effort that he did, and it was fucking phenomenal. So MVP of Wrestleution 5 goes to Chaos. Right, so okay, we'll move on from there. We're getting close to the end, boys. We're 41 minutes into the part 3. The Legends Rumble. We won't spend too much time on this one, but it featured Just Mike, Cola Bear, which is one of John's gimmicks, Nick Ariel, obviously, AJ Orlando, which was Blade, which, you know, we could have left or you know, left that one, or it didn't really matter. It was just him in street clothes. But Dragula, another one of John's characters, Ray Gay from EBW, Phenomenal Jim from EBW, Taser, Johnny V, and then Aiku Man. This was all written simply because I knew Norman was coming to the show, and his last match was in 2005. So, you know, we're talking 12 years later, 12 years after the fact. I wanted to do something nice for Norman, and I thought this is a great way. We'll do a little rumble, we'll do some silly shit, we'll do some comedy before we get to some more serious stuff, and then Norman can win the rumble, and, you know, nice little moment for him, and get someone else on the show that I never thought would come to WZWA, that's for sure. But Norman had been a fan for years and had been watching everything that we ever did, so I thought it was important, if he was ever going to come visit us again back in Perth, that this is the perfect occasion. And he spent all week with me, and it was fantastic to have him there, and fun to have a little moment for the XCW guys, but also a little moment for a couple of EBW characters, which little Chris Parker and Jacob were in the crowd popping like fuck over Phenomenal Jim. So I quite enjoyed this. I'll get through my thoughts first. Really, really enjoyed this. I know a lot of people didn't get the jokes that were going on, and I knew that was going to happen, but this was an inside joke kind of thing just for us, just to get some of the old boys from back in the day out there. Initially, with the Legends Rumble, I did want a few other people, kind of like a Dante Daniels, or some other people from, you know, maybe ICWS or XCW. Chris Rowe, he couldn't be there. Junior referee Daniel Bonner was going to be in it as well. So it was kind of just a vehicle for that. But I really loved it, and I thought the finish was funny, and a nice little bit of ha-ha. DJ.
Yeah, well, I'll sort of, you know, I enjoyed it for what it was. I think that was kind of the XCW moment on the show. It was, you know, most of the jokes and stuff were sort of geared towards you guys. But there's nothing wrong with that, because, you know, everyone needs their little bit of representation on the final big yachting event that we were probably ever going to have at WA. And yeah, I thought it was fun. You know, I was glad to see Norman go out there and have his little moment. I know it meant a lot to him, so yeah, it was just fun. You know, fun. Good
Jack.
to see.
Yeah, it was just a couple of EBW boys hanging with the big boys.
The match was in progress, right?
The
match was in progress, and Jack had already said no to doing Phenomenal Jim. But after Ray Gay went out there, Jack was like, put the theme song in there. I'll go get my gear, and he just fucking ran.
As soon as
He
I saw
fucking got his gear on, and he was backstage in his gear as Phenomenal Jim, And like, all right, the match was in progress and we're re-editing the booking of it because Jack just had a moment where he was like, I've got to do this.
No, I saw Rager go and I was like, no, I'm gonna fucking belt this cunt, eh? I had to go out there. I was like, no, fuck this cunt, eh? Like, I've waited like 6 long years for this moment. I'm not fucking...
You gave him a big Carly chop to the head.
I haven't seen my age dressed as Rager in 6 years. Of course I'm going to bash the fuck out of him.
To wish everyone a Betty Meddy Christmas.
I feel like...
Christmas.
Yeah, the match was mostly just something for the boys. Something we needed, I guess. It was, I wouldn't have cared if we didn't have the match on the show, but of course, Iku Man, it was good to see some old characters as well. And of course, it was sick to see Ray. Oh, it wasn't really that good, but yeah, it was good to see someone getting back out there.
It was funny because it is a fucked character. It really is horrible.
It is
the typical modern
I
character.
just want to wish you a Betty Meddy Christmas. Fuck you, little black
It was
cunt.
kind of like a really weird anime crossover. That's the best way to put it. Just
Right.
It was whack, but it was good.
Chaos.
Yeah, man, it was great to see. Especially, I'm going to bring up Iku Man. It was great to witness someone that I hadn't actually seen before, and I got to meet him prior when we got to pick him up from the airport, but to actually see what his character was about and how gangster he was when he came out and roasting everyone. That was a nice fucking touch. Like seeing Cobbler Bear, like these little inside jokes. They're actually not too far, and they're not too complicated to actually kind of get. And what's happening, and the Cola Bear thing, the fucking, the rip-off of Austin was hilarious. Like, when Dragula came out, I was like...
Feeding Alex the blood.
Yeah, and you know what, I always have a great, always have my eyes fixed on Alex when people come out or something happens, because he's always got these fucking, he's always got these mannerisms about him, like when he came out with fucking Mykonos and Delcano. Someone gave him fucking 4X, was either me or Chris, and he ended up fucking spitting out, which was the cover photo for WZWA for a while. He's always got these funny mannerisms, and it was a great fucking match. It was like bringing back what the Masked Battle Royale was, and bringing about a bit of comedy, a bit of an active intermission.
I think we
really
needed
getting
to
us back
chill
in.
things out a
And
little
refresh
bit after the
things, yeah.
hardcore match and
That's it.
fucking Clyde and Steel.
And it was
So
also
So
great
going,
to see XCW
going
once
into
again.
the 4 main events.
yeah, that's what's next.
And that was-
I just want to touch a little bit on the Rumble, just briefly. Lastly, good to see John and Nick do some actual fucking wrestling in it. I had been on their case for weeks about what was happening at the final show. I wanted them to do the final battle too. I wanted maybe after the Legends Rumble them to blame one another for losing and to go into another comedy match. That might have been a little bit too much though. But as the days got close, they were like, okay, now we're ready to do that 3-way that you always wanted to do. And I was like, sorry guys, I'm committed to this match with Mitch. You guys had, fucking 2 years to fucking do that match, or a year to do that match, and you bailed every time. So, but anyway, I just wanted to touch on that briefly, and once again, good moment for Norman. So yes, as you said, Jack, it's time for basically the 4 main events, I guess you could consider, and the first of which was the Australian Championship match, and this was a stressful situation for me because Mike Massive had arrived at the arena just after Clyde and Steele had their match. So he was sitting in his car for a good hour and a half, waiting for his moment to make his entrance, and I had to keep running out to the car to make sure everything was all good and he knew where he was at. And so as time went on, all right, fuck, I've got to do this Legends Rumble. I hated the fact I had to do that just before my proper match. Had to get my other gear and my old XCW gear and do that stuff. But a culmination of a long winding storyline with me and Mitch, and I was obviously quite emotional beforehand. I remember seeing my video play where it was showing me and XCW, me and ICWS, and some highlights and stuff, and then my theme song actually hit, and I kind of teared up a little bit, but I got through it, and then the match happened, and it was great to perform in front of so many fucking people and all those chairs right there. I mean, it looking out to the crowd, I was like, wow, there's really a lot of people here now. We've really nailed it with this last show. So I'll start with you, Chaos, on how you felt Mykonos versus Aston Crude in 2 out of 3 falls went with the obvious inclusion of Mike Massive.
Yeah, man. Hey, man. Every time you and Mykonos have ever gone out together, it's always been a really good fucking match. And the culmination and the ending of this match couldn't have been any better. You know what I mean? You guys have been at it and gone back and forth, and then of course the tag team thing and swerving each other and just the back and forth. I don't think it could have gotten any better, especially with the addition of Mike Massive. Again, another swerve on your part. Man, I'll also give a kudos to Mike Massive for putting in the commitment to wait in the fucking car for so long. You know, we don't get paid for this. We're just out here having fun, and for him to still commit to it and stay there just for us, because this is the memory.
And drive from Ravenswood to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, man? Kudos to you and Mitch for a great fucking match. I don't really see any like botches or anything really being lackluster. You guys went out there and gave it your a really entertaining fucking match. Personally, nothing against Mitch, but I would have loved to fucking seen you get another sneaky one in. Be a fucking cocky cunt laughing and shit. But man, it was a great fucking match, and you know, I don't think anyone could ask any better of you guys. And you know what? The battle of the super kicks as well. You know, that's what I also loved about it. And you know what, man? As a fan of wrestling, it really brought me into it.
Jack.
Yeah, it was one of those matches on the card that was just emotionally, like you would be very emotionally invested in, because I felt like it was one of those matches on the card, like one of the only matches on the card that actually told a story. A lot of matches on the card kind of felt like they were together because maybe in real life these two people had some sort of meaning, but in this case it was the two characters and the two personalities that are wrestling each other actually have had a pretty like rich history and a rich rivalry against each other, which I felt made the match already, like before it even began, like pretty special. On top of that as well, with the inclusion of Mass, always a nice surprise. Seeing a pro in any yard show is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And especially Mike Massive being sort of the as big as he is in Perth. It was a fucking sick moment, and then to obviously see his heel turn in our sort of universe, always a fucking sick time. It always pictures what in my head. What if we ended up continuing and that had happened at Wrestleution 5? Well, what if Mass ended up doing a match in yards? I doubt it, but you know, it's a what if. But as for the match itself, of course, 2 out of 3 falls. It was, as I've said about some of the other matches like Chaos with Phoenix Light, is everything you expected from. You know, it was everything I've expected out of a Mykonos and Crude match. It was the same, you know, classic as always. Everything you want in a wrestling match. It's got the drama. I feel like the storytelling has always been a strong point in the Mykonos and Crude.
It was great
feud.
storytelling.
The storytelling has always been the strongest point.
Right on, bro. DJ.
Yeah, well, for me personally, this was one I was really looking forward to because, you know, I'm a huge fan of the technical wrestling. Obviously, you know, you, Carl, being one of my best mates, and obviously, you know, I'm a huge fan of Mykonos. And, you know, it didn't disappoint. I felt like as a fan, I definitely got what I wanted out of it. You know, I was happy with the result. I loved the way that it ebbed and flowed. I loved the little swerve with Mass, obviously, as everyone was mentioning. I just thought, you know, basically, like, that it pretty much went off without a hitch. I think that there's, you know, a lot to be said just for a solidly built match that was the culmination of just a traditional style wrestling feud. And, you know, I think it probably meant a lot to Mitch to sort of come out on top in that situation. And, yeah, I think it was a really good match. I definitely think that, you know, a lot of the matches in the middle, and maybe even this one to a certain extent, just sort of suffered just because of how much there was on the card. Like, there was so much going on that I think that it went a little underappreciated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I sort of felt like, even the same about my match, that it was kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit. But for my money as a fan, it was, you know, a fantastic match, you know, a 5-star match. I really enjoyed it. I thought that, you know, both you guys pulled out all the stops. You both got to shine. You know, you both had your moment. And yeah, I definitely think that it was another example of just really good booking. Just the from the technical aspect of the match to the storytelling, it all just fell into place perfectly, and yeah, really loved it.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it. Obviously, as I'd said before, I hadn't been too happy with some of my performances, and a lot of it was to do with my fitness. And I was concerned doing a 2 out of 3 falls match if I was going to be able to last the distance and, you know, not fuck it up. I know early on in the match I was feeling like I'm not bringing it. And Mitch hit me with a knife edge chop, and that snapped me into gear. And then all of a sudden I felt like we just had it. And the crowd reaction for me, I was really happy with it. One of my personal highlights is before the match began, when I was on the mic and Chris made a comment about me balding, and I made a comment saying I'd rather have this amount of hair on my head than have more hair that's on my head growing out of the mole in your chin. I thought that put down, that comeback, I was so proud of that, because I put him in his place and he shut the fuck up after that. So you know, I don't like my baldness being mentioned, and he doesn't like the mole being mentioned, so but anyway, yeah, really happy, and big thanks to Mike Massive for being a big part of my last match, because he was the only thing that really mattered in my pro wrestling stint. No matter what I did, you know, everything that all the other matches I had, nothing fucking mattered in comparison to what I did with him. And he's a good friend, and it was good to have him there. And big ups to Mykonos, you know. We had this planned out a year in advance. We knew that that was going to be the match, and I was just proud to have him as my final opponent, and couldn't have been any better. Right, Luke Monet versus Jack Wallace for the Cruiserweight Championship is the third last match on the show, and obviously with the breakdown of the idea of the 4-way, it made all the sense in the world to go back to Luke Monet versus Jack Wallace, because these two are kind of like Rock and Austin, kind of like Cena and Edge, kind of like that, just the polar opposites kind of thing. But at the same time, they're also a tag team that fucking worked well together as well. So it's the best of both worlds there. You put them together, it works. You put them against one another, it fucking works.
BX. And
I think we probably already knew from the first WZWA event that the last show, it would probably be Jack versus Luke. So that's basically it, Jack. I want to know, first and foremost, from you how you were feeling about going out there again with Monet and doing this one more time, this time with you being Mr. 55 Live and the Cruiserweight Championship being at stake.
It couldn't have been any more fitting for me personally. Monet had always been the opponent I wanted to go out against. And I'd even said, like, if it wasn't at the last show and I was to stop wrestling for whatever reason, my last match would still be against Luke. As for the match itself, I felt like, as good as it was, it could have been better. I mean, the original idea was the match was meant to go for 45 to an hour. But cardio got the better of me, and I called it early, 25 minutes in. But we had a full match planned. Well, I wouldn't say the match was fully planned, but we were planning to go for we had spots pretty much to fill an hour. And we were going for the whole... we wanted to go for sort of a Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart feel. WrestleMania 12 sort of match where it just drags on, and we both wanted to like bleeding at the end of it, like from just it was going to be just one of those just unreal sort of drama filled storytelling matches that was just going to be the one to beat all the matches on the card. We wanted to get match of the night. We wanted to get the best. We wanted to have the best match that's ever been there, and so the fact that we ended up only going 25 minutes opposed to like the almost hour that we wanted to go. It's could have been better, but at the end of the day, I still think with what we did, we still made a pretty good match out of it, and I feel like it was definitely the best match out of the series, and I reckon I'd definitely do it again for sure.
DJ,
For sure.
Loved it. Always been a huge fan of the franchise, and anytime, whether as a tag team or as opponents, I think that Jack and Luke are respectively each other's best opponents, and I think that they always brought out the best in each other, and I think that this was no different, and I think that, once again, if this had been the main event of the show, it would have been a satisfying conclusion to WZWA. I think that it was a fantastic match. I think that both guys really performed at the highest level. The match was a longer sort of, real sort of, slobber knocker of a match, but I think that it never got boring. It never felt like it was slow. Sort of, they kept up the pace the whole way through. I pretty much thought, this match is fantastic. I loved every second of it. Every spot that I saw in the match, I was like really impressed with.
balls to the wall, man.
Yeah, balls to the wall. Just good action match. Like, just a great little pick me up before the final matches of the card went on. And I thought it was amazing.
Right on, Kaos.
Personally, man, I think, Jack, that this was probably the best one out of the series as well. I have to agree with you. You and Luke have always had great matches, but every time you versed each other, you've improved a bit more, had a match, improved a bit more, had a match, and then this last show, you guys have fucking improved so much, and then had this crisp, hard-hitting, as you guys said, balls to the walls fucking match. The finish was fucking excellent, and you know what, man? The spots were crisp as well. I don't see anything that went wrong in the fucking match. You guys went and gave it your all, and like I always say, man, you guys fucking brought it, and much fucking respect for what you guys did, and much respect to fucking Luke. And man, it's always great seeing how much you've improved, especially in that last year in the tail end of WZWA, where you're really coming into your own and fucking getting it done, man. And I fucking love you for it, man. Love you guys for it. It's fucking amazing, dude.
Cheers, brother. You two couldn't have gone out any better. Obviously, it had to be you two against one another at final show. We always knew that. And what I loved about this, it was for the Cruiserweight Championship. I felt like there was a little bit more emphasis as well placed on let's do a bit more cruiserweighty type things in this match, and some of those fucking transitions and counters and Hurricane Ranas were, people going fucking nuts for it. And, we had a couple of guys there that used to do a podcast, and they actually mentioned the Backyard Wrestling show on another show that they were guests on, and specifically mentioned Luke Monet and Jack Wallace, and the fact that they think that those two could have been professional wrestlers later on if they wanted to, because they were so impressed with what you two did out there. So I was very fucking proud, and I already knew from the get-go I didn't have to worry about anything. Like, I knew that you two were going to knock it out of the park, and unbelievable. And the show is continually just getting better and better and better. So from there, we'll get to Antilochus versus Dan Zeppelin in a death match for the SPWS Championship. We're getting to the tail end here, boys. We're about an hour and 4 minutes into part 3. Obviously, this match with Antilochus and Zeppelin was never really scheduled to be the match at the last show until things went downhill with Ice getting injured and Low and Antilicus having a bit of a falling out. So it made all the sense in the world to boom. Let's go back to 2013 when those two had a fucking incredible death match, and let's try and recreate that magic a second time, but with Antilicus even better than he was before. And obviously Dan always brings it when it's a kind of like a big game situation. And
I'm pretty sure it's 4 years later to the day,
right on,
or at least to the weekend.
close
anyway.
to it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the match, and the idea of the SPWS Championship being involved. Well, every other belt was being put on the show. The actual initial idea was to have Ice try and get the SPWS title back to SPWS camp. The initial two, I know Dan is technically SPWS, but that was kind of the idea anyway. But then the idea became, well, if we have Jacob wrestle Dan, then Jacob could win the title, and then we could do the nice thing with the honorary induction into the SPWS crew, because if anyone else deserved to be in that group of hardcore wrestlers, it's definitely Antilicus. So also Killawatt Kaos is the special guest referee, and we'll go to that special guest referee right now for his thoughts on what you witnessed.
When it was set up and that's what was going to happen, I knew that it was going to be fucking awesome. And I felt a bit selfish because I wanted to be a part of it.
Right.
So yet again, I thought, you know what, and that was a real quick was, can I be special guest referee? And I got the go ahead, but yeah, you know what, fuck it, do what you want.
It was at that point I was like, if that's what you want, this is the last show, then go for it.
Yeah, and I was like fucking probably half a carton of beers deep as well after a few more things, because I was drinking with Dan before the match as well and talking with him. And yeah, of course, come out, gore Alex. Poor Alex had to take another fucking spear. And announced myself as a special guest referee because I thought it would be fitting. And then we come to the match, and the match was fucking awesome. Yeah, man, it was just fucking great. Of course, we've got to bring up the spot with the fucking the double table spot with the fucking
With the Spanish Fly.
That's it, the Spanish Fly. And man, these guys just fucking go crazy, and it just shows you that Jacob has fucking improved so fucking much, and he's so much more willing to do things, and he's doing these great fucking things, and he's keeping up with his persona, his character, his fucking athleticism. And then we've got Dan, and you know what? It really showed that Dan was motivated for his very last match, and he went out there and he did it, and he flowed well, and he got it fucking done. And fuck, man, to be close for that match, which was what I originally wanted, and the best way I could do it was actually being special guest referee.
Yeah, it's a smart idea.
I could have been a manager, but I was like, no, I want to be even closer than that. And man,
it made sense. You had to have you at least a part of it. If Ice wasn't going to be there at that point of the night, which is a fucking shame, I really think he should have been there the whole time and be a part of that moment. But
and I wanted to be
he had to be there.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a non-partial fucking player, and I wanted to be like, alright, this is your challenge, this is the test, let's see how you guys fucking
That's
do
the missing puzzle piece from Wrestleution 5 is Ice not being there for that
it.
match.
It definitely was. And you know what, just so I don't drag it on a bit, what I loved was that we're gonna make Jacob like a part of SPWS, but at the end I thought it would also be good to cut a short little promo and be like, look man, you're the champion, we're fucking impressed. We've been watching you, like I've been watching you. You've fucking versed me, you've beaten me, you've taken the hardcore god fucking title off of me. I want to bring you into the fold. I want to make you the fourth member, honorary member of SPWS.
Yeah.
And, we went out there and I just wanted to make it as special as I could as well.
Brilliant. DJ.
Loved it. I really don't have too much more to add on, on top of what you guys have said. I just thought it was an amazing match. I was happy that both of those guys, being my friends, neither of them got seriously hurt. I thought every spot in the match was just amazing. Obviously, the Spanish Fly put it over the line. I think the moment that spot happened, it was like, man, this is something special. I think that, Dan stepped up to a level that we hadn't seen him go to since he was ICWS champion. I think that, Antilochus, always brings it, always fucking commits 100% when he's going to do something like this. And I think both of them really worked well together. You couldn't have asked for a better death match than that, or a better lead-in for the main event either. And I think both guys deserve all the credit in the world. It was just an amazing match filled with stuff that I would never do in a million years. And those are the kind of matches I really enjoy watching because, just as a fan. And yeah, it was just incredible.
Jack.
Yeah, what more do you want out of a death match? You had blood, light tubes, just bullshit. It was just, it was a good match. And I felt like it was the perfect sequel to the 2013 death match, and closed out the little story they had between each other perfectly by having them pretty much aligned together and in SPWS. And adding on before, it was I feel like it's absolute blasphemy that Ice wasn't even there to induct Jacob into the SPWS.
You're low-key permanently mad
Oh,
about
fuck yeah.
I don't think it's low-key anymore.
Yeah, it's the same low-key, bro. It's high-key as fuck.
I guess my thoughts are, I felt bad that there was no real long-term story heading into this, and it was kind of thrown at the last minute. Ice at the Battlefield Brawl show handed Zeppelin the old SPWS title and said, I can't wrestle anymore. Obviously, you were the final SPWS champion. Could you please try and find a suitable opponent so this belt can be shown at the last event? And unfortunately, after that, I don't think Dan appeared at another show until Wrestleution. I think Dan was busy. There was a Beaufort Street Festival and all those things that he was doing, or whatever it's called, Fringe Festival. So he had a lot of work all the time, and Dan wasn't able to make many of the other shows. And knowing that Jacob had to wrestle him, I was worried Jacob might be a bit cross that his opponent wasn't there to build up any sort of feud. But this wasn't about a feud. This was about a match. This was about deathmatch wrestling. This was about SPWS. This was about us showing that once again we were the ones that made hardcore wrestling so fucking relevant again, that the fucking United States gave us the World Hardcore Championship because no one did it better than us. And this is just a perfect example of some of those main guys in the hardcore division in this company that fucking just made it what it was. And obviously, yes, we've all said it, the double table Spanish Fly. I can't believe that when they did that move, that it landed fucking flush right in the middle of the top table, and they both went through the second table underneath, and everything was fine, and it didn't fuck up. I mean,
the fact that the fucking tables were held up by milk crates as well.
Yeah, and just
the perfect snap.
Yeah, it's very
and just the potential for error. You had to be so fucking precise. And Dan, as a hardcore wrestler, Dan isn't a big bump taker. Dan just does crazy shit with light tubes and staple guns and barbed wire and all that shit. Dan doesn't do the big bump thing, but that's a fucking big bump for Dan to take because he'd never gone to that level with bumping.
I think he had to for the last show.
And he knew that he had to, exactly. So, these two fucking went all out, and it was in the finish as well with a fucking powerbomb onto the light tube into the Antilla Crusher. 1, 2, 3, and a great moment with Antilochus being inducted into SPWS, and they say their farewells as well. Now it's time for the main event of the evening, an hour and 14 minutes into this thing. Blade Shaw, who has been there since Hard Time 3 in 2014, still has not been made to submit or has been pinned since being in WZWA, and he is champion at that point, WZWA champion for 407 days going into this one. It made all the sense in the world. We knew Ryan earned it more than anyone else to go into that final show going for the championship and having the fairy tale ending for him.
Yeah.
And obviously with Blade, if he was going to drop the belt to anyone, I'm sure he wanted to drop it to Antilochus at one point, but if it was going to be anyone else, Ryan Tate was the guy, because those two had created a pretty good bond with their tag team and had become very good mates. So this was a perfect kind of main event for me to book at the end there, for this to be the final match in WA backyard wrestling history and Australian backyard wrestling history. Let's be honest, nothing else will ever matter. So we kind of played off their past history together, and this was the match. So I will go to DJ first.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, Blade and I have obviously become really good friends. You know, and no, but to be
Hammered
honest
that one
with
into the
you,
ground.
You're the only one that says that.
Blade has never said that on any podcast.
nah,
Well,
but
DJ claims that he and I have become very good friends.
yeah.
Hey, someone
No,
tells
but-
DJ fucker, we're not friends.
Nah, but to be honest, though, it was, for me, the best part of the match was, obviously, we all know that Ryan has always been the heart and soul of WA Yarding. He's always been the workhorse, the guy that's always there, keeping track of the stats, doing all the media work, you know, always enthusiastic, always excited about everything we're going to do, committed to it 110% from the very first moment that he walked into an ICWS show. He wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
He proved that he deserved to be a part of it. So to see him finally get his big title win, and then of course everything that happened afterwards with the proposal and stuff like that, I mean, what a special night for him, and a special night for all of us as his friends to be able to share that with him. And then of course, you know, the level of improvement that Blade underwent from the time that he first came back to WZWA and up until that match. And he never would have been able to pull off a match like that when he first came back in. But then by the time we got to Wrestleution 5, it was like, man, I had no doubt it was going to be an amazing match, and it was. And they both just did a phenomenal job, and it was an amazing match, just so emotional, so heartfelt, so filled with, you know, drama and passion and everything that we love about backyard wrestling. It was more a culmination of all of us as a family saying goodbye with the, you know, two people that all of us really respect and love. And, you know, you couldn't have, you wanted to see them enjoying this moment because you knew that they deserved it, and they fucking delivered on the match, and it was just incredible. And I loved it. I'm a big fan of it. No matter who came out on top of the match, I would have been satisfied with the ending. If Blade had retained, I would have been, you know, happy with that. But, you know, I was, of course, ecstatic to see Ryan finally get his shot as heavyweight champion. And, I mean, yeah, what a contest. It was just amazing.
Jack?
Yeah, it was just last show, so there's a lot of feelings going into it, a lot of last match.
Everyone's fucking crying.
Yeah, everyone's just I'm yawning.
No, he's saying at the time.
His eyes are watering now.
Blaze, motherfucker.
No, I thought it was a David vs Goliath battle, and I would have loved to have seen definitely a very lengthy rivalry between the two, maybe ending with a fucking, I don't know, 3-match series, with the last match being at, like, what's our second biggest event? Frostbite. And something like that. But as for the match itself, like as DJ was saying, like, it had all the had the drama, the story, and had the brutality as well. As we all know, Ryan's stiff as all fuck.
That little motherfucker hits hard.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I can only imagine what he would have been going through that last night, Blade. I mean, going through with Ryan.
Yeah.
But no, Ryan, he deserved it. I knew he was going to win it, but I always thought he deserved it. And then for him to have his proposal afterwards was a special moment. I thought it was the best way to close out.
Definitely.
It was a perfect way to close it out.
Chaos.
Yeah, man, I have to agree with these two. It had all those factors of a great fucking match, and especially the last match, the main event, and our final fucking event to send off all of our fucking careers in yarding. And mate, like, yeah, I see it a bit like David vs Goliath, but I don't see Ryan as too much as an underdog going in the match, because Ryan has always had, like, he's always been the staple of having great fucking matches, man. Always bringing it, always having, like, he's been there, man. He's knowledgeable. He's always been great and definitely fucking deserving. So when it came down to it, I had this like fucking Andre the Giant Hogan thing of the immovable object,
The immovable.
The unstoppable force
Yeah,
meets the immovable object.
Yeah,
is that
exactly. Thanks for correcting me, guys. Basically, right like that, man. And you know what? Whoever won, it was still going to be a great fucking match. And yeah, the passion they put into it, the moves, everything that they fucking did. They even had you going at some points. And you know what? I don't think you could really ask any better of a fucking main event, especially their whole history and the culmination of how it fucking ended through them being a tag team, the stuff with Lila, their friendship. It was just the perfect main event, and especially afterwards having that proposal from Ryan, it just you could look back in the video, you'll see me clear as day fucking welling up and turning into a little bitch when that happened. It was just such a fucking it was like the fireworks.
It was special.
Yeah, it was. It was very special, and it was definitely the cherry on top of that Wrestleution 5.
Yeah, I was very happy with it, and obviously the proposal was just an incredible moment for all of us to share together. And Ryan goes in the Hall of Fame and all that stuff, and he's a champion, and he proposes to his one and only, and it's just huge. If we weren't already fucking crying enough, people now with just even more tears in their eyes. Absolutely brilliant, and I was just thinking then how funny it is, kind of like how things come full circle and you don't even really plan it out. When the Ryan Tate character I started writing for, in 2012, it was all about gaining respect and trying to gain the respect of Mykonos, and then it was about trying to beat respect out of Rex Regan as his second feud. And then he disrespected the Rebellion, and he went the other direction by disrespecting them and turning on them to go with the Elite Alliance. Then after the Elite Alliance thing happened, even more disrespect by what way that he treated his partner and the way that he treated his best friend Blade Shaw. Just becoming this dastardly character, nowhere near who he used to be. And then obviously he changes his ways, but he doesn't want the respect from Blade until he's earned it. And once again, the end of his career, that character is looking for respect again after he'd done the wrong thing. So I thought it was great that story kind of, came full circle. And brilliant, just brilliant stuff. And I don't think this could have been booked any better, the way that everything just culminated at the final show. And with it being Blade Shaw and Ryan Tate at the end, what more could we ask for, And that was the end. We all shared hugs, beers, tears. It was a very emotional evening for all of us, and a lot of people felt like they weren't ready for it to be over. But, 18 months later, we've all seemed to handle it okay, but we do miss it. Do we all have any final thoughts on the final show?
Well, I just think that backyard wrestling is a part of my life and a period in my life where there was a lot of times where several years really where the only thing that was getting me through was coming to these shows and seeing all the boys and hanging out, and obviously some of my most treasured friendships and treasured memories came as a part of backyard wrestling. And to be a part of Wrestleution 5, which I sort of always thought of myself as one of the people that was propelling backyard wrestling along in WA, and to sort of see where the stuff that you and I respectively started back in the day evolved to, that was really special for me. And all the boys sort of telling me how much they respected and admired me and stuff like that on a personal level. That really meant a lot to me because, you know, I never really felt like I'd done all that much to help these guys get to where they are. They all did that shit on their own, but, you know, it was still really special for me. And yeah, I just think it was a great final event. You know, I wish I hadn't have had the flu at the time, but that didn't stop me from enjoying it and really, you know, getting into it and stuff like that. And I just, yeah, it was just fantastic, you know.
Cass?
Yeah, man. You know what, I have to attribute all of this shit to, you know, being in yarding and starting with all you guys, and of course DJ starting ICWS and getting us all along. And you know what, just, you know, building friendships and adding more wolves to the pack and having a family, and you know, and definitely my own character is definitely, you know, been better off since being in wrestling. And you know what, I'm gonna fucking miss it. I always say the end full stop, but as like a Libran, man, I always have that question mark where maybe one day I'll just snap because of how much I fucking loved it, the memories. But I do know one thing, and that's I'd never disconnect from the bonds I've made since being in yarding. And hell, man, that fucking event, Wrestleution 5, I couldn't have asked for a better way, a better send off. And you know, I'm definitely gonna miss yarding if I never get back into wrestling or yarding as it is. And yeah, I just thank everyone that's been involved, and I thank every experience I've witnessed and everybody that's put their heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears, and you know, just everything's been so fucking awesome, and I'm really thankful that I got to experience it.
Right on. And Jack, well, we finally got to do the podcast. Finally, after 18 months. But your final thoughts on the final show and how you're feeling?
Where do I start? Fuck. I don't know. Part of me wishes it was that we gave it another year or two, as I've previously mentioned in this podcast. But at the same time, I'm fucking glad it's over. I don't think I could deal with waking up 9 in the morning, hungover as fuck, coming down grumpy with the coffee for another couple of years. But no, I do miss it a lot. As for the final show, I mean, I couldn't ask for a better send off, and it was I feel like it was a once in a lifetime experience, and even then, it's going to be like a once in a lifetime chance to even experience or even have the opportunity to get that once in a lifetime chance. Because who the fuck does backyard wrestling? No one.
At least on the level of what we did.
Yeah, exactly. And if they do backyard wrestling, they do it as a fucking joke for a couple of years. You know, there's none, you know, I don't think a lot of people, except for maybe the Americans and the Australians of the early 2000s, got to experience what we did. Yeah. And I think the Americans barely scraped. They got barely scraped.
Barely scraping by.
Yep. To experience what we got to experience.
I thought that was a new Empire song.
Yeah.
No, I'm just fucking...
You're tired, bro.
Yeah.
We're stoned as well.
Yeah.
And a bit drunk. Right, and my final thoughts. You guys already know how I feel about everything, but the brilliance of what we did was we took it very seriously, and we got to live out a dream that we only ever fathomed when we first started doing it. You started on trampolines?
Started on...
Was it grass?
Yeah.
You started on grass and mattresses?
Solid ground
Pools?
mattress, yeah.
I started on grass, then trampolines and mattresses, and then 10 years later there was a base at ICWS, and I was like, oh wow, we should have done this years ago. But then to think that we actually got a fucking ring, and that ring is probably the most important fucking thing about this whole experience that we had over those 5 years.
That ring was the climax.
That ring made it. If we didn't have that ring, it maybe it would have just been ICW. I don't know. I don't know if that would have... Who knows? You can't play what if because you just never know. But if it wasn't for that ring, we wouldn't have had that experience. That's a crazy fucking thing. It wasn't just the WZWA Originals and the ICWS guys and me. It ended up being like more ICWS guys and you know, XCW guys and the ETW guys and some of these other outsiders like Steele and Brandon and all that, and
I
you know,
consider them WZWA guys.
we put it all together, and it ended up being this like fucking
Huge melting
accumulation
pot,
of
just
everything that ever meant something to backyard wrestling in this state.
It was a super fed.
It was fucking crazy.
Easy. It was definitely like a Champions League or a super fed.
Definitely. So we're fucking lucky to have had the experiences, and the experience of Wrestleution 5 was the perfect way to go out because everyone got to leave with their head held high with no regrets, and that's what it was all about.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you guys for taking the time here tonight for this fucking marathon of a podcast. But I think we knew going in,
so that's like
it was going to be a long one.
That's like 4 hours, nearly 5 hours.
Yeah.
Don't play the credits to Don't Question My Heart. That's the rifle.
All right, let's do
4
it.
names. Don't question my heart.
Yeah, and it's just like
So I want to thank Jack Wallace, the founder of WZWA.
no one.
He tipped his hat. If you don't realise at home, Daniel Johnston
Cheers.
and Killawatt Kaos.
Love you guys.
And, this could very well be all their last appearances here on the podcast, as now we're at episode 93. There's probably not much to go now, so I want to thank you guys for not only being on this episode, but on past episodes as well, and your efforts and time and love and appreciation of being in WZWA and everything else we did. Thank you guys. And thank you guys for listening to the GBYWN Australia podcast. I don't know what's coming next. I do want to interview Gareth. I do want to interview Mykonos. I don't know who else. I just want to get to 100 episodes. So maybe we might do another roundtable discussion on something else with another crew. Who knows? But thank you again for listening, guys. And you made it this far, so congratulations. And hopefully be back with you here on the podcast very soon. Thank you and good night.